Hello, it's Graham here. I want to talk today about quitting smoking. I had a lady come to see me the other day and I asked her the question. I said, have you ever tried to stop smoking? She said, oh yes. When I was pregnant, I stopped smoking for 9 months. And then as soon as the baby was born, I smoked a packet of cigarettes. Very interesting, I said. So it sounds like to me that you didn't get rid of the reason why you smoke, but you had a very good reason to stop smoking for 9 months. Yes, she said, I think that's right. I had another lady come and see me, a very tall lady. She was about 60, strong woman. And she sat down and opposite the desk to me, and she said to me, Graham, I'm very sceptical. I don't think there's anything you can do or say that's going to turn me into a non-smoker. I've been smoking for 40 years. I said, really? That's interesting. So tell me, why do you want to stop smoking? Then she stood up, she banged the table, and she went off for about 5 minutes. And at the end of that 5 minutes, I said, I don't mind if you're sceptical. You've got some excellent reasons to stop smoking. And that was about 18 months ago. She's still a non-smoker. In fact, she came back to see me a week after that appointment, and she sat in my office again and she said, I was sure, Graham, when I left your office last week, that nothing you had said or done would turn me into a non-smoker. But she said, I haven't bought any cigarettes in the last week. You're a genius. You see, what we need to have in order to stop smoking are two things. The first thing is we need a good reason. And I had a lady come and see me, and I said, so what's your reason to not smoke? And she said, to save money. And I said, it's never been a good reason to stop smoking, because you always find the money you need to smoke a cigarette. I said, let's imagine for a moment that you stopped smoking a year ago. You came to see me a year ago and you stopped smoking, and you'd saved all the money you were spending on smoking in the last 12 months. You put that money into a separate bank account. How many cigarettes are you smoking every day? And she said, oh, about 20. I said, well, if each cigarette's worth $2, that's $14,000 worth of cigarettes you're smoking every year. So let's imagine for a moment you stopped smoking a year ago because you came to see me, and now, right now, you've got $14,000 in a bank account that you can do anything you want with. Tax-free money. I said, what would make your heart sing? What's something you'd love to do? She said to me, I'd love to take my 3 grandchildren up to the Gold Coast and take them on all the theme parks up there. I just watched them having a wonderful time and telling me about their experiences. I'd feel so much love for them, and they would feel so much love for me. It would be fantastic. I said, imagine you're getting on the plane. You've spent your $14,000, covers the cost of all the aeroplane fees, hotels, meals in and out, everything, theme parks, everything's covered. And you're sitting on that plane about to go. It's about to take off. And your grandchildren are sitting next to you. They're so excited. And you look at them and you think, well, gee, I love these kids. And then you think to yourself, this is a free trip. This trip hasn't cost me anything. How would you feel about yourself? Well, you'd feel like a genius, wouldn't you? You'd feel totally amazing and so much in love with these children and how excited they are. So I said to that woman, I said, go and get a picture of a big plane, take a photograph of your head, stick it on the plane, take a photograph of your grandchildren's heads, stick them on the plane, and write the date in 1 year from now, because being a non-smoker means you'll have $14,000 in a year's time, and stick all that on the fridge. So every time you go to the fridge, you'll see the reason that you've stopped smoking, and you will feel the feelings. That's much better than saying, I want to save money, because we've turned it into an emotion. So when people come to see me, I ask them the question. I say, why do you want to stop? And we talk about that, and we find a really good reason to stop. So that's the first thing you need, is a good reason to stop. The second thing is you need to understand the habit of smoking. Every time you wake up in the morning, do you have a cigarette? If the answer is yes, you've been doing that forever. If you've been smoking for 20 years or 30 years, you've done that thousands and thousands of times. If in the morning when you have that cup of coffee or that cup of tea and you have a cigarette, you've done that thousands and thousands of times. You get in your car to drive to work and you have a cigarette, you've done that thousands and thousands of times. And then at morning tea time at work, you have another cigarette or two. You've done that thousands and thousands of times. And then you have a cigarette after a meal at lunchtime. You've done that thousands and thousands of times. And then as you go walking to your car or the train or the bus to go home, that night you're having a cigarette, you've done that thousands and thousands of times. And then after your evening meal, you have another cigarette, thousands and thousands of times. So every day you do many things that allow you to have a cigarette. In fact, the cigarette has now been attached to those things very strongly through the habit of smoking. So you have a coffee, you're having a cigarette. You have finished your meal, you're having a cigarette. You're getting stressed, you're having a cigarette. You're feeling tense, you're having a cigarette. If you're feeling relaxed, you're having a cigarette. So the cigarette is connected to all of these things that happen every day. So the moment you try and stop smoking, unless you do something about that connection, it's really hard to stop. So that's the second thing we need to look at, what the connections are. And we need to find a way to break the connection. So if you don't stop smoking right now, then the question is, what's the cost? Well, if we talk about money for a moment, let's say you're smoking 20 cigarettes a day, it's $14,000. So over the last 10 years, you've spent $140,000. Over the last 20 years, $280,000. And if you've been smoking for 30, 40 years, it's $500,000. And let's say you keep smoking, if you don't make the decision right now to stop, it's likely you'll be continuing to smoke. If you smoke for another 30 years, 40 years, it's another $500,000. So in a lifetime, you can spend more than $1 million easily on cigarettes that you just light and burn away. So financially, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. But more important than that is the health costs. If you continue to smoke, then you'll die earlier. But you won't be healthy when you die. You'll be laid up in some hospital bed. You'll have lung cancer. I talked to a lady about a year ago now, and I said, do you know anyone that wants to stop smoking? And she said, well, my husband should have, but he died of lung cancer. It was horrible for him, she said. And it was horrible for me and the rest of the family to watch him gradually die over that period of time. He was unable to pick his grandchildren up. He was unable to do anything, to go anywhere. He just died. And it took him some time. It was horrible. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. So the health costs of being a smoker are incredibly devastating. And you see people walking around carrying an oxygen bottle with them because they've got early onset emphysema. So it makes no logical sense to smoke, yet people do. And they smoke because they A, haven't got a good enough reason to stop, and B, because they don't understand the connection between the cigarette and the many things they do every day. And it's only $1, $2 cigarette at a time, isn't it? So it's time to stop. Make the decision. Give me a call.